Hey, what's up, y'all?
Chilling. What's going on? It's Vibes. You know what I'm saying? I'm your host, Marc. You know what I'm saying? For real, my co-host, Becca in the house. You know what I'm saying? Becca, what's going on with you?
What's up? What's up? Happy Monday, people.
Yeah, no
What's
doubt,
going
no doubt.
on?
I was just like, man, Becca, was kind of schooling me in this podcast thing. I was getting like a first class education in this thing right here. Like, look, nah, you want to do it like that. You want to, you know what I'm saying? But she real good teacher. But she gonna be hard on you though. I'm like, man, Becca really could have been a teacher, in another life. Like, for real, she really be hard on you. I'm like, man, when Becca was going back and forth with me on the I'm just like, Lynn Johnson, are you in this IM? I didn't know. Seriously, I was looking for my mom. Like, wait a minute, hold up. My mom was a principal, so I was
I
like,
just do direct, Mark. I'm just direct.
yeah.
Sometimes it does sound like
But I
stern,
like it
stern
though.
talking to you.
See,
I'm just direct.
everybody can't take that. See, yeah, see, Beck, we from up north. Yeah, everybody can't take that. Oh, Becca, can you talk to me a little nicer? No, I can't. I can't do it. I can't do it. I
They
gotta go
definitely
out there.
can take that way I am in the South. They definitely feel they just because I'm from New York, they just say, okay, she's from New York. And then because I'm from Brooklyn, they also say, oh, she's from Brooklyn, New York. So they kind of chuck it off as that when
Oh.
it's really just your ass can't take it. It ain't got nothing to do with it has nothing to do about where I'm from. You just
It
can't take it.
don't have nothing to do with it. I feel you. I feel you on that.
But
I
it's
feel
tough.
you
And
on that.
we're gonna get into that later about the tough things that come with podcasting and all of that stuff.
Yes.
So it's not
We
easy.
definitely are. So, stay tuned for that. We just got a few stories, to knock out. Then we're going to get to the main topic and you're going to find out why people left and why people stayed and, all kind of podcast stuff. It's a lot of changes in the podcast world, but this is kind of how it goes though. So I'm like,
Mhm.
we're going to get into that real soon, but we got to start with our first story. What do we got?
The game's 10-minute
Oh,
Eminem diss.
first thing, I listened to the entire 10 minutes, right? But I
Oh, you
swear,
had you had that much time in your life to do
yeah.
that?
But you know what though? I had to like I kept like missing stuff, right? So I was like, all right, I gotta turn it back on again. A call would come through. I gotta answer a text. I gotta do something else. I gotta order food from out the window. I'm just like, yo, so I couldn't really get through it. Yeah, it took me about four times to really actually get through it. Like, what part was I on? I was on 5 minute 506. All right, cool. Let me go back to 506. But
Mm-mm.
one thing I want to say about the record, and I'm just going to, specifically speak about the record right now. First thing is too long. And, I think Becca, would agree. Like 10 minutes for any song is too long. I'm like, seriously, if you're not Michael Jackson, then I don't really want to do
Mhm.
10 minutes with you. Or Prince or somebody very, very iconic. You know what I'm saying? Which the game, sadly, is not, no disrespect. Um, but the one thing I did like though is that he used every Eminem voice from when M came out to how he raps now. That's pretty creative, and he rapped like in his voice. I'm like, so on a creativity level, I give him a 10. The rap, was okay, you know what I'm saying? But on a creativity level, I give him a 10. And that's just me speaking on the record. you know. Uh Becca, I'm going to fire this a different way to you.
Okay.
Now, it seemed, the game, I'm gonna say like every time he has a project comes out, he got to diss somebody and he got to make up a story about somebody or whatever to, I guess, get attention on his project. But he's done this ever since, like, I think, his first album, he didn't have to do that because nobody knew him. But I think every other project after that, and the game is,
Yeah.
I don't know how many, I think he's close to 10 albums, right? Or if he's not at 10. I'm just like, if you're good at something, right? And I think a game is a good rapper. I think he's made good records, right? I don't think
Mhm.
he's great, but I think he's pretty good, right? But doesn't these controversies like overshadow any bit of good that you are, like, because we're people are focused on the the controversy and they're not focused on the actual project. Just what are your thoughts on that part?
Well, they always say all publicity is good publicity, right? Whether it's
Okay.
good or bad, it gets the people talking about your album, it gets the people talking about what it is that you're doing, right?
Right.
A lot of people love to hate. So yes, Game is talented as a rapper, and we do know he got some skills. But I think at this part of his career, he doesn't need to diss somebody that he was at one point an admirer of to get people to listen to his album. I mean,
Hmm.
to be honest with you, a lot of people who have heard the album said that they like it, but it's too long. It's 31 songs. We
Yeah.
don't hear that many words. We don't want you rap. It's too much rapping, right? So that's one thing. You're not Chris Brown. You can't come out with 100 million songs on one album and think that
Right.
people will listen to it. But then on the flip side, people are like, but I like Game and I like what he's doing and I like what he's saying. But this just, I don't know. At some point to me, I feel like at a certain age, and then a certain part of your career, you need to stop using controversy as a rollout to your album. Because
Hmm.
really, what is your beef? And this goes back to what me and you spoke about a while ago about how men handle conflict,
Yeah,
right?
we did talk about
This
that.
to bring it to your neck version of it. Just go ahead and put out a 10-minute disc talking about me. Now, I don't know how Eminem, feels about it, but Eminem will diss somebody. He's known to do it in plenty of records. But I
Right.
don't think at this point in the career that you need to do a 10-minute song dissing one person, and this person's not even thinking about you.
Right.
Like
You
Eminem
know.
is not gonna come out here and put out, if he does entertain Game and put out a diss song on Game, it's going to be ether. It's like
Yeah.
it's not going to be, a battle of the rappers. I don't think it was necessary. For I'm not a Games fan. I don't listen to these rappers, but I've heard
Mm,
some of it, and I was like, why? Why are you doing this? This doesn't
yeah.
even need to be done. 10 minutes about one person, and then to actually sound like the person and emulate the person, it
Yeah.
seemed like a parody. It seemed like a parody. Like, Game, relax.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I have to agree. I'm just like, I just kind of don't get it because like my thing is you're on Eminem's record label, Shady Aftermath. Like he's still like your boss, like in a sense, right?
Pretty
That's
much.
number one. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm just like,
It was
I'm
pointless. It was pointless. It
yeah,
was absolutely pointless. But it got the people talking. Now
yeah,
everybody's
it
going to
definitely
listen to
did.
the rest of the album, or even if that one particular song does popular, it got him clicks and streams. And at the
Hmm.
end of the day, that could be all he
Right.
wanted.
That's this is true. My thing is like this though, right? I look at it and I'm just like, okay, we see what you did, but it's like I'm like, and I'm like, I guess part of it's necessary, I give him that, but it's like this guy, I'm just like, look, I'm like, you're dissing M when he's like past his prime. Like you said in the interview when M was in his prime, oh, that's a guy I would never challenge, right? And it's just like to me, I think people are picking on Eminem now because he's like past his prime. I'm just like, listen, if you want to go at somebody who really can go, then go at somebody who really can go. I'm like,
Hmm.
did we not see Jada Kiss and the Locks like in the verses? I'm like, these guys can still do their thing. So I'm like, go at them and let's make it interesting. Don't go at a guy who hasn't really put out much, isn't really trying to put out much. I'm like, he's already well established, in his place in history and all of that.
Hmm.
I'm just like, it just seems like, like, I'm gonna just pick on the old guy. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's just, I'm like, it's kind of like unnecessary. You know what I'm saying? That's like
And then
saying, like, yeah,
Eminem is
man,
not.
I'll play Michael Jordan basketball right now. Jordan's like 60. Like, you know what I'm saying? Of course you'll play him right now. You wouldn't do it in his prime.
And Eminem is not no slacker rapper either. So if you
No,
want to
he's
go ahead
not.
and put out a diss track on Eminem, yeah, go right ahead and see how that works for you. Because if Eminem decides to come out of his cage, out of his
Hmm.
dungeon, his attic, to come and do a verse against the Game, he's gonna regret it. So just relax. Just leave the bear alone. Don't poke the bear.
Right. There you go. You know what I'm saying? That's it. That's all we got on that.
Yeah, Game tried it.
Yeah, right, right,
It's
right.
fine.
Hey, the street team general Tayson, what up?
Hey.
Hey, all right, what we talking about? What we got?
Speaking of rappers and doing unnecessary shit, Yeezy and his damn foam helmet. Like, why? Why? So you
uh
want the ugly mask to match the ugly sneakers?
yeah,
I
and
don't listen. Mental health matters. I know it does, and I hate to say it, but you cannot tell me that this is just a genius's mind at work. There is something going on inside Yeezy's brain that should be examined when he perishes. Because I need some understanding as to why he's behaving this way. Like, bring Kanye mother back, please.
I'm gonna say like this foam helmet, whenever it goes on sale, I don't know if it has or not, right? But whenever it does, it's going to sell out in a minute, just like anything else he puts out, right? I'm
Yes,
gonna
and
say
I
like
hate
this:
that because that's why he
some
wants to do it.
I'm gonna say like this: some of Yeezy stuff, right? I think is really nice. I'm like, oh, that's nice. I rock that. You know what I'm saying? Or grab it for the nephews or whatever. And then some stuff, I'm just, Lord, I'm like, you really gotta be a Yeezy fan to wear this foam helmet mask thing. Like, you just gotta be a fan of Yeezy. You know what I mean? You just gotta be a fan. I'm just like, man, can you make it cool? I guess, but it looks terrible. Like, you know what I'm saying? Y'all have to look this up. But foam helmet mask thing looks terrible. I'm like, in the shoes, you know what I'm saying, that matches that though they look terrible too. But
Yeah, it
those
looks
already
just
sold out a gazillion.
it honestly looks just like the sneaker. If you
Yeah,
put the sneaker to your face, that's exactly how it looks. Like it really is no intricate anything to it. It looks exactly like the sneaker. Now, I just don't understand the purpose of it. And the thing that I hate most about it is that as ridiculous and as crazy and as left field off the wall that it is, it's going to sell. People who
hell
just
yeah,
got money to waste is gonna buy this, and it just makes it seem like it's just too much. It's just too much.
yeah,
We are a wasteful society. And I know that they're not going to be cheap because the sneakers are a buck something, almost $200 each.
yep,
So this helmet, I'm sure, is probably going to be three, four, five, 600,000. I'm sorry, that's 600, maybe even 1,000. It's probably going to be like a rare diamond encrusted one that goes on for NFT. Like it's probably going to be a whole
yeah,
bunch of ridiculous stuff. And it's like, why, Kanye? This is what happens when you are just bored. You're just bored. You got money. So money ain't a thing, right? You're already a billionaire, multi-billionaire. You got nothing but time on your hands to do anything. So you just make a helmet. Like, I don't
I,
understand it. I don't get it.
I'm like, my thing I'm like, it looks bad. You know what I'm saying? But somebody told me, they were just like, yeah, like, I agree, right? But it's going to be a collector's item type of thing. People will go get it. Like, that part I get. You know what I'm
It's
saying? It's
NFT.
I mean, I kind of get that part. Just like with the sneakerheads, it's just like, yeah, what I mean, I got like 15 pairs of the number twos, right? Number two Jordans. Like, I get it. I don't get it, but I get it. You know what I'm saying?
It's
That's
probably,
really
it
all.
looks like it needs to be on like an artifact, like in a museum. Like this is what they wore back in 1925
Right.
when they were trying to run away from the master. That's what the helmet looks like. It looks like something that you would see in like my daughter's history book.
Okay.
I could
Yeah.
definitely see it at a museum. I, dead ass at a museum with a black and white inscription underneath it as to back in the 1800s. This is what they wore to avoid being captured by the slave master. I see it. That's exactly what it looks like to me.
It's
And next
crazy.
time you see that helmet, that's what you're gonna think of too. You're not gonna be able to unsee it.
Yeah. Shoot. I'm gonna say like this: whoever's out there listening, if you buy it, take a picture with it and send it to us, please. Appreciate it. I just want to see how it looks on you. That's all.
It's gonna look crazy, I guarantee you.
True. Yeah.
All right, helmets. We're gonna. This is a bad segue, but here we go. Helmets that you wear in sports. Football coach
Mm.
being killed by former NFL's brother.
Yeah.
This story is
It's
actually really sad.
this is a sad story. The coach was Coach Hickman. This was in Lancaster, Texas, I believe, somewhere in
Yep.
Texas.
Yep.
Um, so the brother, um, yep, man, you just said his name. I can't even. I mean, I don't even know his name, but he's the brother of Akib Talib. Akib Talib, who's was an All Pro,
I want to
in
say his
football.
name is Yaqub Salik Talib. He's
Okay,
39.
cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yaqub
I'm gonna say
Salik.
like this: the video is crazy. Like I seen the video, it's on Instagram. If you want to see it, it's not direct because usually when people start shooting, the phone falls down and they're running for their life. Which is probably a good idea. This is why you shouldn't be recording anybody fight, especially
Right.
now, because a
Right.
gun's coming out. You know, so I'm just like that's why you don't stick around when people are fighting. If you or your people not in the fight, go the other way because the gun's coming out. So
Right.
anyway, I don't know. It seemed like an argument at first, then it was leading to a fight, and then they start fighting. Then all of a sudden you hear pop, 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 right? And you see the guy dressed in all black, and that's Yaqub Talib, right? He's dressed in all black with a black bucket hat. And this is what happened. But the one thing I will say just about youth football in general, particularly in the South, and living in
Mhm.
Miami, I've seen this firsthand. They bet a lot of money at these youth football games. I've seen
Mhm.
bets go down for 10,000 or more. Like at a football game, and it's in cash. Look, number 6 is going to score a touchdown on this play. For a later bet. They
Yep.
throw 10,000 on the ground. Each man throw 10 grand on the ground. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
that's how crazy it's like. Youth football is almost like the new dog fighting. You know what I'm saying? Betting on it and everything like that. And they don't bet. They don't really bet as much with the older kids, the high school kids and stuff like that. They bet less there, but they bet a lot on this youth football. So I'm not saying that was the situation here, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
It's possible if you have a former NFL player coaching your team, then yeah, yeah, that's going to make you want to bet because you feel like this particular pro bowler is going to actually be able to coach these kids in the right way, and it might actually bring me some money because everybody's looking for a bag these days. But
yeah,
what's so crazy is it reminds me of I have cousins who have sons and friends who have sons and
hmm
people I know that even play kickball, right? They often talk about there's a community that talk about how coaches talk to the players, right?
hmm
It's usually not in a nice way. Like I've seen
no,
and I've heard stories of coaches really going buck wild on players in regards to how they speak to them. But from my understanding, this happened with the wrong play, right? The coach of the opposing team
hmm
kind of called the wrong play and it ended up in an argument, which
yeah,
is which is one of the reasons why some coaches don't let parents onto the field. Like you
right.
stay in the bleachers, you cannot come on the field, you cannot even sit like on the edge of the field. You need to be in the bleachers. Like don't come nowhere near because the coach at that point is dealing with the player a particular way. Sometimes the parents are a distraction.
Yeah,
They want to
being a
come and say and they want to argue the coach about a play that they made. And
hmm
this is a game. It's very different than how you raising your child at home versus how the coach is coaching your child in the field. It's very different.
right.
And it's not that serious. It is a game. So and they're kids. So now these kids seeing one of the other kids' parents shoot their coach and kill their coach. This is something that the kids will never forget.
Nah, and that's the
And was
sad
it all
thing.
worth it? No.
And I'm gonna tell you, being a youth coach, and I've coached football, once, and I've coached basketball, for a few years or whatever. I'm trying to tell you, parents will try to jump in there, particularly the higher stakes of the game. It's championship game and stuff like that, and you get yelled at, you calling the wrong play, coach. What? What the f you doing? And then, all that kind of stuff. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, man, and I had parents fathers get in my face, and I'm not gonna back down or nothing like that. But it's just like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Like, you really gotta talk to them. Like, you really want to do this right here, right now? You really want to do this right here, right now, right? You know what I'm saying? And family is pulling the guy back. And so I've been there. I know what it's like. You know what I'm saying? And then, I try to think like, cooler heads got to prevail. But when you're in the heat of the moment, somebody in your face, like, you ain't thinking like you the coach. You thinking like, yo, this dude in my face. You know what I'm saying? So it's sad that it came to that, and the kids this will never be out of their mind. Like, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? And
This is traumatic.
most coaches are father figures to the kids. Like, even if they got a father, you know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
Like it's like dad first, coach second. And sometimes, when the dad not around, which is more often, it's coach, it's like
It's coach
my
only.
dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel bad, for everybody involved. The brother, has turned himself in about an hour ago. He turned himself in, and he said it's two sides of the story, and he's going to tell his side. So I'm interested to hear what could possibly be your side for doing that.
Right. Like, what do you think your side of the story is going to be? How you're going to justify that you ended up shooting this man over a game? It's not
Right.
like he didn't do it. Right. What kind of anger issues do you have where you are first of all at a kids football game with a gun on your waist? That's second of all. But then
Yeah.
again, that goes into gun laws, which nobody wants to address. Everybody wants the right to bear arms, but while you're over here bearing arms, you have a argument instead of handling conflict the way that we have discussed in a previous pod,
Right.
you decide to pull
Absolutely.
your gun out and shoot because you have not learned conflict resolution.
Right.
Something we spoke about in a pod again about how men handle their conflicts and how sometimes that pride and that ego can get in the way. I'm sure he didn't just pull out a gun because he felt threatened or whatever the case may be. I'm sure he felt his ego and his pride kick in because I'm sure maybe the coach was telling him, "Yo, fall back. I'm the coach. This is the game. This is what's happening. However your child is disciplined at home, that's your part. While this particular kid is on my field and I'm the coach, this is my territory." I'm sure that's
Mm.
probably what the coach said.
Yeah.
Especially when you have pro football in your family or in your past. It's a
Hmm.
whole different way that you're going to coach versus somebody that just loves the game and played it on the street and now you want to coach it. It's very different.
Hmm. Yep.
Sure,
Absolutely.
a lot played into it, but I don't know what his side would be to justify him killing that man
Yeah.
in front of
We,
those kids like that.
well, I'll say like this: when we get an update on the story, we will update you on the story.
That's just crazy.
Yeah.
And rest in
Definitely.
peace to that man and his family
Yeah.
and all those kids that had to endure that and see that the other parents that was there at the game, they just went to go see their kids play a game and it ended up in a murder.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely. Crazy.
ridiculous.
Crazy.
Unacceptable.
Hmm.
Next we got Mike Tyson versus Hulu.
Uh, I'm gonna say like this, right? I mean seriously. Like, first thing, if you're a fan of Mike Tyson, right? You like him, you watch them fight, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. This is something you should not support. Hulu is doing a unauthorized biography of Mike Tyson. I think it's going to be a limited series. I'm not sure how many parts or whatever.
Yeah, it's
But
going to
this,
be about 8 episodes.
I'm like, Mike Tyson, you didn't even call the man, you know what I'm saying, and work something out. No, we just going to do it on our own, and that's it. And I'm just like, it's one thing if Mike Tyson had passed away, right? And then you do something like this, but he's still living, and he's easy to get in contact with. I mean, seriously, like, I lied to you not. If you want to get in touch with Mike Tyson, you really can hit him on his social media. He will respond.
Yeah.
He responds to his fans. He just do. That's how Mike is. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, so you're Hulu. You're worth millions of dollars. I mean, I'm guessing, you can get in touch with Mike Tyson and work
Right.
something out. I will not watch this at all. You know what I'm saying? Period. You just don't do that. It's a right way to do things, the wrong way to do things, and this is definitely the wrong way. I'm not a fan of unauthorized autobiographies or biographies or whatever they call. When it says unauthorized, I just automatically won't watch because I'm like, you're only giving the story that you think is the story, but you're not giving like the real story. So I'm not watching fake stories about Mike Tyson. I'm just not going to do
I mean, I get what you're saying about watching unauthorized bios because a lot of the times it is just somebody wanting to tell somebody else's story, usually a popular somebody that
it.
people are going to watch. But it could be a gift and a curse because, like for instance, Aretha Franklin, there were
Hmm.
two bios about her. The one that Aretha authorized with Jennifer Hudson,
Okay.
and then there was the one that was not authorized with Cynthia Erivo. I watched both of them. The
Hmm.
one that was not authorized with Cynthia Erivo was much better than the one Aretha authorized because she authorized a lot of information out of her bio. So it
Hmm.
was boring to me. It was Jennifer
Right.
Hudson screaming the whole movie. The one with Cynthia Erivo playing Aretha Franklin was much more information. It was longer. It was much more entertaining. It was just better. But what happens with these unauthorized, and with me having a production degree, this is my wheelhouse. So a lot of people wonder how can Hulu or anybody make these bios about people without their permission? And it's
Hmm.
simple. The right to know, the public's right to know, generally overrides the public's figure's right to privacy. That's
Okay.
crazy. In the US, the right that the public wants to know your information will matter much more than you actually owning your own information. Hulu has been known to do this. They have done
Okay.
it with American Crime Story. They did it with House of Gucci. It's done plenty of times. Even the
Hmm.
story about Queen Elizabeth, The Crown. It's
Right.
been done plenty of times. And even Hulu was doing this again. They plan to do this again with Pamela Anderson.
Mm.
So they're coming out with a story on Pamela Anderson that she's also not a part of and that she
Right.
disagrees with. But again, the public wanting to know the story matters much more than the person owning themselves, their own image, which
Right.
is why intellectual property is very important because a lot of
Absolutely.
people can't come and make a story about you without you needing to be any part of it because they already know it's just in their interpretation of your existence and you
Hmm.
have no right to stop them. But if you own the rights to your own story, like Mike Tyson is saying he wanted because he wanted to do this on his own with Jamie Foxx playing him.
They're still doing that. That's what I heard.
So there is not like Mike is not able to do it on his own. But if Hulu beats him to the punch, like they did with Cynthia Erivo and the Aretha story, because that one
Hmm.
came out first before the one that came out with Jennifer Hudson,
Right.
then it's like, do people want to watch the same story twice?
Well, I would say like this. I think Mike Tyson, his movie with Jamie Foxx, that's actually going to be. They saying it's going to be released in theaters, right? So I'm just like, that's going to be like a major motion picture. They want to put it like how Will Smith did Ali. They want to
Yeah.
do something like that.
Hmm.
Jamie Foxx, anytime he has to actually play a character, he's going to be terrific.
He's going
And
to
he
kill it.
and I'm gonna say he has Mike Tyson down. Like, if you
Absolutely.
you could click on YouTube and check that out. Like he got him down cold. Like
Yeah,
so
he does him very well.
I mean my thing is I'm just like I don't know. To me, if the person's alive, right, and Mike's like not a guy who's like runs from his past. He really embraces everything he's been through, right? So I mean, Aretha Franklin probably did, right? But Mike
Yep.
does, and I'm like, now how can y'all not work with Mike when, like, he embraces like, yo, these are my triumphs, these are my failures, this is everything that happened. I'm
Yep.
just like, that's just being like greedy and just not wanting to cut a check. Like that's what it looked like to me.
But this is Hulu.
Yeah,
This
I
is
mean,
this
you're
is
right.
Hulu, and they've done this plenty of times, and they're not going to stop because it's technically allowable. If they want
Hmm.
to make a story on someone who does not own the rights to themselves, they can. And it's so crazy that you have to actually have an paperwork etched in stone to say I own the rights to me.
Well, let me ask you a question.
But that's what's necessary in TV land. It's
Let,
necessary.
let me ask you a question. Now Mike, what I'm saying, for a lot of years, he was a great fighter, right? A lot of controversies, a lot of stuff happened, right?
Hmm.
You know, um, and he went through a lot, jail. We know the whole story, right? But say
Yeah.
if somebody is like, okay, so after the fighting's over, after all the controversy is over, hey, I want to own the rights to whatever my life is, right? I'm like, like I get it, but you know what I'm saying? It's like 30 or 40 years of your life it has been in the public. I'm like, can't somebody just be like, oh, well, we really don't have to give you anything, you know what I'm saying? Because this already happened. It already happened in the public. It already was reported on a gazillion times. Like, can't they just take it anyway?
Not if I trademark my life. Not if I own my life. Same thing like with LL Cool J and Rock the Bells.
Okay.
Like he had to go to court about the name Rock the Bells trademark so that the Rock the Bells festival couldn't go on without his permission. So there
Okay.
are things that you can create, that you can trademark, that no one can use without your permission. Same thing with music, how no one can sample it without getting the producers or the
Right.
owners or the writers' permission. So even though it may be my life story, and I should be able to tell my life story without having to ask anybody for permission, in the entertainment business, it doesn't work like that. So I can make a story about Mark, and Mark don't have to input. He don't have to say yay or nay on it, and I can create my own story about Mark, and Mark can't do nothing about it. Which is the reason why Mike Tyson wants to fight so much to be able to tell his own story, because there's been so many times that stories have been told that he's been part of that does not portray him in the correct way according to him, right? The
Hmm.
Evander Holyfield situation, his wife, and the alleged abuse that he had,
Oh,
like,
Robin Givens, yeah.
right. So there's so much that he has had to endure about people telling his side, telling his story, that he
Hmm.
now wants to do it too. But it's very important that you get your paperwork right when you are a celebrity.
Hmm.
He's not just Mike Tyson. He's actually a brand now.
Hmm.
So he has to protect himself, his brand, and he has to actually get paperwork to own his own likeness.
Okay. Now, is that
If
how it
he
works? Okay.
doesn't, then anybody can make a story about him with any
Right.
type of narrative that they want, and he has nothing to say about that.
Yeah, I think lastly, and we'll get out of here, real quick on this. I know, the famous director Oliver Stone wanted to do a movie about Dr. Martin Luther King,
Hmm.
and the King family shut it down. They were just like, nah, you're not going to tell the story and tell these parts of the story about our father, grandfather, and so forth. And he never did the movie Oliver Stone. He never did that movie. So I'm just like, I'm guessing that they did own they own the rights, to his life and what happened and whatever. So is you might have heard some story about Dr. King, not being in the right kind of light. And I don't know if these stories are true or false, but the family wasn't going to let that type of story come out, about Dr. King. It just wasn't going to happen.
Right, because he wanted to show the adultery, the conflicts with King's
Mm,
movement, his spiritual transformation, some more radical stuff that
mm,
the King family didn't want out there. They wanted to keep Martin Luther King's image the way that it was, and they don't want nobody to know that he cheated with white women.
mm. Okay.
They didn't want nobody to know that. Even
All right.
though people know that, you
Yeah.
can't put a story, a movie, a TV show, a biopic, or nothing out about it. Let that be in the rumors, right? Let
Okay.
that stay back there. But
Gotcha.
if that is able to be brought out, it will taint that particular image that they have of one of our great black leaders.
All
So
right.
he pulled back from it. And I
Okay.
don't think that Hulu's going to pull back from this. Obviously, it's going to premiere August 25th on Hulu. So they're like, so what? We have the right to do it, and we will do it. Same way Beyonce was able to use Khalees stuff without having to go to Khalees, because she
Right.
ain't the one to give the yay or nay on it. So
Right.
it
Gotcha.
sucks, but that's what it is.
Okay. You know what I'm saying? You heard it
Moving
here first. That's how it is.
on, yeah. I mean, it's bad, but yeah.
Okay.
Intellectual property, it's important.
Right.
Um, Unfortunately, we've lost a couple of celebrities. Recently. We did mention before, rest in peace to Olivia Newton-John.
Yes.
Um, there's also Anne Hesh
Hmm.
and Denise Dowse,
Yeah.
who also passed away this week. So
Yep.
rest in peace to them as well.
Yeah, definitely. And they did some good work. Like you look at the credits and some of some of the movies they were in and shows and
Hmm.
stuff like that. And I'm just like, man, they did some really good work. So it's a lot of great work between these ladies, and I mean, they'll definitely be missed. But I was just like, man, if you want to see some good work, go back and watch any of these ladies and some of the things that they did. You're gonna see some really good stuff. So, you know, um,
Yeah,
that's really good.
Denise Dowse was in a different world.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the have you are you familiar with the Anne Hesh story and how
Yeah,
that's
that's ooh, man, I'm like, man, this is what they say. They say drug use, cocaine, fentanyl, stuff like that, in a
well
crash, you
supposedly
know.
supposedly she was there was cocaine found in her system at the time of her car accident. So
Hmm.
I don't understand what's going on these days with people wanting to drive their cars into intersections and just
Yeah.
off themselves. I don't understand what's happening, but that's what happened with Anne Hesh. And she has been declared brain dead, and they were trying to find donors. She wanted,
Right.
for her to be an
Hmm.
organ donor like her wish was. But I'm not sure if you've even seen this or heard of this, but there is a video that's out of her at the scene of the accident in a body bag, moving in the body bag. So so now the feds have involved themselves to see if maybe it's a conspiracy because they're trying to say at the time that she was captured at the accident and they put in a body bag, she was not completely dead, meaning that she was still moving and it showed evidence, allegedly, let's just say allegedly, big air
Hmm.
quotes, that she was trying to get out of the body bag.
Mm.
They pronounced her officially brain dead at the hospital, and they were
Yeah.
now trying to figure out about her organs and stuff like that. But there was a video that was released that got the feds involved as to her actually trying to come out of the body bag.
The is it foul play involved or what I'm saying? Because these conspiracy theories, I'm like, I remember long time ago, with the photos of Tupac, would post him just like, yeah, well, he didn't really die and he's still alive, and like these photos are fake, these are real, like, yeah, I remember that. So I'm like, nothing surprises me, but I'm like, the way it's coming out is she's legally brain dead and she's an organ donor, or wants to be an organ donor. I'm guessing that she is an organ donor, and they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to find a match, whatever. So I don't know. It's going to be more to that story, though. Either it's going to get buried or more of that story's coming out. We just don't know which one.
Yeah, that's just crazy. And she was just on Instagram like a couple days before her accident because I think
Mm,
she has a podcast with somebody else. It's
okay.
just crazy. It's just crazy that I don't know. It's just I think about what is going through your mind. There's got to
Right.
be a lot going through your mind to want to commit suicide and actually do it, right? Because people
Yeah.
have those thoughts, but just never are able to actually do it.
Yeah.
Um, but then to do it, and what's going through your mind as you're driving your car 100 miles an hour on a local street, and you're about to crash into something, and your intent is to kill yourself like that's got to be a very powerful overtaking of your mind to think that, right? Because a lot of
Yeah.
people feel like they don't want to be, I don't want to be here anymore, I'm depressed. There's different levels, but it's also possible to not want to actually follow through with committing suicide. It's just thoughts at the moment. So how do you cross over from it being a thought to saying I'm going to actually do it and then do it?
Yeah. And then, I'm saying, some people really choose a violent way. That's like the model that jumped allegedly. You know what I mean? I'm not sure about that story either, but they said she jumped from 30 floors up. You know what I'm saying? And then
Oh,
she
I know who
died. The
you're talking
model.
about.
Yeah.
I know who you're
I was
talking about.
like, now it's some conspiracy theories about that too. Like, no, I don't think so. I think she was pushed. You know. So I'm just like, man, you just never know, but it's just a violent way to go. You know what I'm saying? And some people choose that.
Yeah, That's unfortunate. So
Yeah,
rest in
definitely.
peace to them, and condolences to their families and everybody that's having to
Absolutely.
deal with this, because it's not just a matter of dealing with the death itself, but the person that died is a public figure. So now you
Mm,
have everybody joining in on the mourning with you.
right.
So you don't even really get privacy at that moment either.
No, no,
So
not
it's
even.
tough. It's really tough,
Mhm.
especially if it happened this way, then everybody's online. Um, Negating whether this person really wanted to
Yeah,
do what they did, and celebrity life is so weird to me, and it's so crazy that I was on my way to that life before I had my daughter. I was, going into entertainment and TV and theater and movies and all of that stuff. To look at it now, it's just like, that's why they call it Hollywood.
yeah. I'm gonna tell you, living out in LA for a few years, it was, you just, I mean, you hang out with some people or whatever, and it's just like, man, you could just see certain people, they just going through it. I mean, even though they're nice, hospitable, I met a lot of people or whatever, but you could just tell when somebody just looks like, please get me out of here. You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously, like, and I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I had a couple guys like that. You know what I'm saying? They're just like, yo, are you parked outside, man? And then we just went to Fat Burger, like, what I mean? And just, fat. I like, look, I got a hat, I got some glasses, and we just ate Fat Burger in the car. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just sometimes it be like that. You know what I'm saying? Where it's, what I mean? They just want to get away, and I
Mm.
understand.
Well, let's pivot into our quote unquote pivot into
Hmm.
our main topic. We titled this one "Groups Break Up Every Day." B podcast edition.
Podcast edition. You know what I'm saying? Listen, I know some people what we like. Can't y'all talk about like the R&B groups, the rap groups will break up? No, that would be like a 90-day pod if we did that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We don't got 90 days to give you. We don't got that, and we're not doing 90 parts of this either. You know what I'm saying? We will come back to you at a later date on that. This is the podcast edition. All right, we'll get to the R&B groups later. All right. Um, well, I mean, we got to start with who's right, first to go, and that would be the Breakfast Club. Um, Angela Yee, you know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, is leaving the Breakfast Club. She's getting her own show. I heard the deal is pretty much a monster. Like she
Mm-hmm.
really got she really got a hell of a deal. You know
Oh
what I'm
yeah.
saying? So if anybody thought, like man, like she was underappreciated and I don't know what she gonna get. Guess what? Sometimes, I mean, you bet on yourself, you know what I'm saying, and you win. And that's what I think happened here. I think she bet on herself and she won.
Well, if anybody has been keeping up with Angela Yee, all of her fans, whatever, she started at series with her own show. So
Yeah, heard that.
she's been in the business longer than Envy and Charlemagne. Like, she's been in it
I
from the
heard that.
beginning.
Mm,
Serious talk radio, what they call, terrestrial radio, which is her having her own show from back then,
mm,
right? This is before she became to work with Wu Tang. So people don't even
yeah,
know her history with Wu Tang. Like, she's been
mm,
in the business and in entertainment for a while. And she's always kind of been her own brand.
right.
When she joined the Breakfast Club 12 years ago, that was her first time being with someone else. She always had her own show. She's done
Yep.
her lip service by herself. She's done interviews by herself. She's always kind of had her own lane.
Mm,
And she had to kind of switch it up to be part of the Breakfast Club, because she wasn't going to do it in the beginning, because
right.
she had her own lane and wanted to
Yeah,
stay there, especially with two guys.
right.
Um, and this is back when Power 105.1 in New York had first started, and they needed a morning show.
Mm,
Um, Coming off of the heels of Hot 97, they started to be their competitors, so they needed a morning show that was going to be
right.
as good as Star and Buck Wild that was on Hot 97. So she always had her own spot. But what I started to realize, I'm a New Yorker. I listen to them in the morning. I'm throwback, like Ed Lover and Dre on 107. So I remember when 105 first started, and everybody was like, "Well, who's gonna be on Power 105?" Because Hot 97 had all the good DJs, the good acts, the good
Yep.
artists, everybody. So
Hmm.
who was going to go there? A lot of a lot of the beginning players at 105 were from 97. So it felt like people was jumping ship. But Angela Yee was never like that because she always had her own lane. And I feel like over time she just wanted to get back to that.
Okay.
And it started to feel like there was tension between her and Charlemagne that was easily seen. I think it kind of boiled over the pot when she had an issue with Charlemagne doing that interview with Gucci Man because he was calling her a bunch of names in that interview and Charlemagne didn't really say anything. And it was supposed to be an interview with all three of them,
Hmm.
but but Angela Yee and Gucci Mane was having issues at the time, so she was like, "I'm not doing this interview,"
Right.
because she felt very uncomfortable. DJ Envy stood behind her and was like, "Okay, well, if you don't want to do it, then I don't want to do it." Charlemagne was like, "We can't miss this opportunity. We got to do it," and that's when people started to think that maybe Charlemagne was just trying to be shady towards Angela, but he was like, this is not my beef. And this is a good interview. We need this interview. So he ended up doing it on his own.
Mm.
And in that interview, Gucci took all the times he can, like a Irv Gotti, to talk shit about Angela Yee.
Yep.
So
I remember
that's
that. I
when
seen that
I feel
interview.
like it started to turn. And you can kind of
Hmm.
see that she wasn't that interested. I mean, she has a dry personality to begin with. That's just my opinion. But
Gotcha.
but so a lot of that is also because she's the only female, and it's a lot of the times she was with, the only female in the room, and it was a lot of heavy hitters and a lot of male testosterone and
Yeah.
personality in the room as well. So she had to kind of fight through that. And with radio being so male dominated, she already had to fight through that. So I think she just got tired.
I think to be honest with you, when I looked at her role on that show, and I don't think I think that was like by design. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo,
There we
this
go.
is your role on the team. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think she, because you see her on lip service, you see her on some other things. I'm like, well, how come this how come she ain't on the Breakfast Club? It seemed like she just kind of fall back. But I'm like, then I'm
Mhm.
thinking like, well, the show probably like this your role. This is what you do. It's just like if you're on a
Yeah.
basketball team, you might not be the one that gets to take the shots. Like, yo, grab these rebounds. That's what you
Mhm.
do. You know what I'm saying? So I think they kind of pushed her in the back a little bit and then gave her some things and then she could chime in on some things. But I like you see her on other stuff and I'm just like, well, she's a lot better over here than what she's doing here. So I think she kind of gets a bad rap. So hopefully we'll see, better of her, with this new deal and new show and everything like that.
Well, supposedly it's still with iHeart. She had
Yeah,
mentioned
still out hard.
a few years ago to one of the top levels at iHeart that she wanted her own show,
Yep.
and it was just things didn't work. This is way before the pandemic. Just
Right.
things at the time didn't work, and I remember years ago her saying that it was time for them to sign their contract,
Hmm.
and she didn't renew with a yearly contract like Charlemagne and Envy did. She went month to month. And I
Yeah, I
think that
think
that
they
was
no, I think they got raises and she didn't get a raise. At least that's what was being reported.
well, that could be true, but either
Okay.
way, she didn't sign a deal like the Charlemagne and Envy
Right.
did. So she was literally at the time where she could leave at any moment. So then the pandemic came and she was still stayed around, but then eventually they came to her and they said, "Okay, we think it's time for you to have your own show," and they gave her the bag. So her lip
Yeah.
service is already syndicated, right? That's
Yep.
on iHeart, and
Hmm.
then this new show, I forgot the title of it, Up with Angela Yee or something like that with Angela Yee is supposed to be coming on right after the Breakfast Club,
Okay.
which I think is strategic.
Yeah, that's that mid morning, you know what I mean, for that mid
Yeah,
morning
that
mix,
10
that
to
mid morning
3
early
slot.
afternoon joint. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that 10 to 3 slot. And
Yep.
she is going to be syndicated in the beginning over 30 markets. This is what she's saying. But it's going to be in the fall. So she'll still be with the Breakfast Club until the fall. If
Right.
they find a replacement before then okay,
Well,
cool. If not, it's just the two of them for now.
speaking of replacements, you know what I'm saying? They cooking around, some names, and
She's very dry,
they're
very
definitely
dry.
reaching down here to Philly because you know what I mean, they're looking at people with Power 99, Mother Knows. You know what I'm saying? For real, gay, you know what I mean? The gay dude from Power 99, you know what I'm saying? Real funny guy. He's from
Mhm.
Brooklyn, you know what I'm saying? But he's in Philly. And
Yeah.
they're looking at Roxy Romeo, who's from Miami, you know what I'm saying? But she's here in Philly. Like, one thing about big radio in New York, I'm like, man, yep, and this is not just radio. It's news, it's TV, right? They certainly do pluck a lot of people from Philly. They do it often. You know what I'm saying? I'm like,
Well,
damn,
even
where'd she go?
Charlemagne was in Philly a while
Yeah,
ago. Like when he got
yeah,
fired from the Wendy Williams show, so
yeah.
Philly and New York often shuffle,
Yes, they do.
VJs
Yes, they
anyway.
do. So it's interesting, what's going to happen because like Roxy Romeo, hasn't been in Philly that long. She's only been here a year. So I'm like, for her to be on the move, I'm just like, I'm not saying that she's on the move, but they certainly are looking at her. That's what I heard.
I've heard other names too, like Remy Ma. They were thinking of,
Mm-hmm.
adding Remy Ma,
Yep.
and
Mm-hmm.
they were gonna. So I had seen something where they had offered Remy Ma 200,000 to do it, but what they were paying, like some of the names that they mentioned for a New York radio market, they were not paying them as much.
Yeah.
So that's usually how it is. You get somebody that you got to give the bag to, you put them somewhere else and bring somebody new in and pay them less. Because
Mm-hmm. All
to
the
be in
time.
to New York, anybody that joins them, if they decide to add a third person, I think it should be a female. Just
Yeah,
because you
I
need
agree.
a different perspective on topics.
It, it,
But it
it's,
would
it's
have to be somebody strong.
yeah, it's a good
Not as
dynamic.
strong as Remy Ma though, because I think Remy Ma is
Right.
another nigga. So it'll be somebody
Yeah.
else.
I would say like this, it's a great dynamic, but somebody who definitely can hold their own. And I'm like, when you listen to different morning shows or whatever, all over the country, you could tell the ones that can hold their own and the ones, I'm saying, that either it's by design they fall back or it's really that, they can't really, get they thing off. They, too male dominated. They're kind of taking over, like her voice or whatever, and she
Yeah.
doesn't have the fight in her to actually do it. But some females really have the fight in them. I love to hear that back and forth. So I'm just like, all right, yeah, I like her. You know what I'm saying? Shit, she ain't taking
Yeah.
no shit out here. Like, you know what I'm saying? So
Rika says that she thinks they should reach out to Free, who is a former co-host of 106 in Park. Um, I
it's
I do like Free. I don't think she fits with Charlemagne and DJ MB. I just don't think I don't see her being able to just jump in and fill that spot. It has to be somebody a little bit stronger. But I like us. I'm not sure people are familiar with Scotty Beam. I do like Scotty
oh
Beam.
yeah, I follow her on the gram. Yeah, Scotty Beam's thorough. She's
I do
thorough.
like Scotty Beam, and I like what she was on For the Culture with Joe Budden. But her and
Yeah,
Joe
yeah,
Budden,
yeah,
but
yeah.
they bump heads a lot.
Yeah, she
And
talked about that. Mhm.
yeah, that was one of my first times even seeing Remy Ma in that particular space,
Okay.
and that's why I say I wouldn't want Remy Ma in listening to her in the morning
No,
either. It's
Remy Ma gonna handle them boys. So I mean, she gonna have them running scared. It's almost like when Lil Kim came up to the Breakfast Club and Charlemagne, was bitching up. You know what I'm saying? That's when he got chased outside or whatever. You know what I'm saying? We all seen that video. But
yikes.
you know what I'm saying? Man. So that's the Breakfast Club. Let's move on, y'all mean for it to wanna let's move on to Joe Budden. Can we talk about Joe Budden? You know what I'm
Whew.
saying? Now,
Joe Budden.
the interesting thing about Joe Budden's podcast, right? We're going to talk about, past and we're going to talk about present, right? But
Hmm.
with Joe Budden's podcast, he's the one of the few podcasts that doesn't do guests. They just have their opinions and they just kind of, he just, for it, talks about, what he thinks and that's what it is. He doesn't really do a lot of interviews and everybody kind of remembers when Joe Budden, when he was with DJ Academics or whatever, Gossip Queen. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And they had that incident with the Migos, right? With Joe Budden,
Hmm.
like, man, I'm not asking these guys no question. He dropped the mic and left, and the Migos, you know what I mean? They about to take off their jewelry, start fighting or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So Joe Budden is really acquired taste. I'm just like he's gonna pretty much tell you, what he thinks, and if you don't like it, too bad. Um, but
It was
that's
not
one of
always
the
like that, though. It was not always like that. Like
okay.
Joe Budden, I think in the very beginning, tried his best to follow the rules or whatever. But you know, he already had somewhat of a following before he started his
Right.
podcast. So people already knew him and knew of him. So it was easier for him to kind of create a podcast catered to him with Rory
Right.
and Mal, who he already knew
Hmm.
before. Like he started
Right.
with Rory and then Mal came in at about the 73rd episode, I believe,
Okay.
is when Mal came in and then that's where it continued. But I listen to Joe Budden's podcast and he is a lot. He's definitely a lot. He's loud. He is very opinionated. It is what it is. He's entertaining though. And I think that sometimes with a strong personality like that, again, with men and their egos and their pride and not handling conflict correctly, he started to bump heads. And Joe does have some type of narcissistic ways. Like, this is my
Hmm.
shit. It goes my way. And if you don't like it, then go that way. And that's just it. I'm not doing
Now,
anything. I'm not
if you
conforming. None of that.
if you could kind of, I mean, for get, I mean, the people listening in, up to speed. You know what I'm saying? Now, I remember I didn't hear the show, but I remember hearing it that day that, like, yeah, he fired Rory and Mal or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Just how did that whole thing come about, in the aftermath of it? And obviously, Rory and Mal, they do their own show, and I've watched a couple of their episodes. They're doing pretty good. But why did that happen? And you know what I'm saying? And just take us right through that real quick.
Well, there was rumors of them being issues in the background to begin with because
Okay.
Joe is a very strong personality and he does not waver a lot. So there was already a mediator between Joe and everybody else on the pod to begin with
Okay.
because he's so much that sometimes it's hard to talk to him. So a lot of the issues I think stemmed with not only the way that Joe behaves, but the
Hmm.
money issue too. And
Okay.
Spotify and his issues with Spotify kind of showed that because it wasn't Rory and Miles' decision to just ask Spotify like Joe did, right? That deal that Joe made with Spotify and the fact that it was time to renew it and he wasn't happy with it was solely Joe's decision. Rory and Mal may or may not have been able to have their say in that. And then they started to notice some things changing in regards to the money. So all they wanted to know was, how is the money being divided?
Hmm.
Because they may have had some feelings that it wasn't being divided the right way.
Okay.
According to them, they were not workers for Joe Budden. Joe Budden was not their boss. They did
Hmm.
have percentage deals in the podcast. So it
Okay.
wasn't like a salary, but whatever the podcast made monetarily, Rory and Mal was to get a percentage of that. They
Okay.
felt like maybe they were not getting the percentage, the dollar amounts wasn't, the math wasn't mathing. So they wanted to see some paperwork. And Joe was like, why? Like, you don't have the right to ask that. You don't have the right to want to know that. It's none of your business.
Mm.
Because, right, Joe kind of treated them like you're my workers. You work for me. They were like, we
Mm.
don't work for you. We work with you. So there was already
Okay.
a argument there.
Gotcha.
Then once the Spotify was time to renew and they didn't give Joe what he felt he was worth, that's when Joe started to spew all this hate about Spotify on the pod.
Hmm.
Rory and Mal wasn't really able to kind of navigate that well. And then the ego comes. And then the pride comes. And Joe was like, F you. So there was one time where they were supposed to show up to pod and they didn't. Rory and Mal have a very close relationship, more so
Hmm.
than what they have with Joe. So the two of them were kind of like in agreement, we're not gonna go.
Right.
Joe in his mind was like, I told y'all to stay home. Fuck it, y'all fired. So
Yeah.
again,
Yeah. I heard that. I heard that.
discrepancy. So instead of Joe handling it professionally in the background, he
Mm.
handled it on screen and fired them on
Of course
screen.
he did. Of
They had
course he did.
already, when he fired them on screen, they had already decided not to come back anyway.
Hmm.
But that
Okay.
doesn't look good for them to say we abandoned Joe. It's easier for it to look like Joe fired us on screen and we decided not to come. And even to this day, like Maul does want no part of Joe, none whatsoever. Rory's a little different. Rory has been in the same spaces with Joe, and there hasn't been any beef. He just figures I'm gonna just stay away. Joe's on
Mm.
that side of the room. I'm on this side of the room. We're good. Maul
Right.
would never ever want to be in the same space with Joe ever again. I feel like
Mm,
Maul is on site when it comes to Joe.
right. Gotcha.
So now
Okay.
Rory and Mal have their own podcast.
Yeah.
They're
Yep.
able to do their own thing. And I watch both now. I watch Joe Budden with his with Ish and Ice. And then I watch Rory and Mal. Do watch the both of them. And they are completely different types of shows.
All right.
But
Now,
Joe's still the same. He's still loud.
yeah.
He's still rambunctious. He's still my way or the highway.
Now, here's the thing, though. What's crazy is that I've seen a show that Joe Button had, and he's, taking shots at Roy and Mal, and I'm like, okay, y'all partnership ended a while ago, or a little while ago. You know what I'm saying? I was just like,
Yeah.
man, it seems like he's I won't say jealous, but he's bothered. You know what I mean? That Rory and Mal are doing pretty well. I think that bothers him a little bit.
He will probably never say that openly. And
No.
bothered, like, he jokes a lot about pod wars, right?
Mm,
He talks a lot about pod wars and how there's a war amongst podcasts
it
and
is.
podcast members. He jokes about it quite often. He joked
Mm,
about it in this last one. So
yeah.
he talks a lot about pod wars, and I do kind of feel like the narcissist in him, or he has high level of confidence.
Right.
Let me say that. Let me not call him a narcissist because I don't know him personally, but high level of confidence
Right.
is what I'll say.
Okay.
He definitely wishes that anybody that mess with him fails. Like he
Right.
said that, like I want all these niggas to
Gotcha.
fail.
Man, now speaking of pod wars and people messing with them, let's go to my city, Philly, all day. Of course, we're
Hey,
talking about $1 million worth of game with Gilly and
hey,
Wallow.
mm,
And it used to be Gilly, Wallow, and Dev, and I know this story personally. Heard it firsthand from Wallow's cousin. You know what I'm saying? Me and him, me get our cars and watch the same car wash. So, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Usually I bump into him on Saturdays, right? Wallow, you know what I'm saying? For every now and again, I might bump into him. But I remember when that first happened. You know what I'm saying? I bumped into cousins. I'm just like, yo, what happened with Dev? And yo, look, man, you know what I'm saying? You just like, look, because I heard it before Gilly told his side of the story, right? And I knew
mhm,
Gilly was going to be outrageous in how he told it because that's Gilly. Like, you know what I'm saying?
yes,
Gilly is an over the top Philly guy. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's who he is. Like, trust me, being kind of an over the top Philly guy, I know what an over the top Philly guy looks like, right? So, you know
you're
what I'm
not
saying?
that far. You're not over the top like he is, though.
Nah, not
He
with Gilly.
wild
You
for
know what
the
I'm
night.
saying? Nah. I don't know. If you gave me $1 million, I don't know. You know what I mean? It might change. Who knows? Right? Um,
Money might change you.
but I'm gonna say like this, right? Like I I'm gonna say like this in the beginning with those three, Gilly, Wallow, and Dev, it was a good team, to be
Mhm.
honest. Like, I mean, I listened to them from the start. Dev, kind of ran, you know what I'm saying, I guess like in the radio room, how you run the boards or whatever. You know what I mean? He did a lot of the stuff behind the scenes, a lot of the
Mhm.
creativity, set up, you know what I mean, for real certain parts and things like that. So his contribution, like, actually meant something to the show. You know what I'm saying? Like, Dev is pretty creative, Now he's
Yeah.
not like a guy from the streets like Gillian Wallow. Like that's not his background. He's more kind of a, you know what I mean, for, a guy, a little nerdy, you know what I'm saying? But he knows like the technical aspect very well. Like
Yeah.
he's really good with that. And I think Yami came to him, or it was a conversation with Gilly. I don't know how much Wallow was in this conversation. Quite sure he was, but I'm just like, I know the conversation really mostly was with Gilly, and he was just like, asking for a percentage. Like, look, we can do this. And it wasn't like no big percentage, like, yo, you know what? Yami, let's split it three ways. It wasn't like that. But
Yeah.
Gilly's like, nah, you know what I mean? For $1 million a game, start on Instagram, with me, you know what I mean? And then, my cousin, you know what I mean, got out, and then, we're doing our thing long before you came along, no percentage, you know what I mean? For you are a worker, you get a salary, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? And Gilly, the way he talked to Dev was pretty crazy from the story that I heard. And this is before Gilly got on camera. So I was
Right.
just like, the camera version is a little more tame than the real version as far as what I heard. So
Mhm.
I'm just like, but he got on camera and just like, yo, man, I can replace you with anybody. You know what I mean? I'm gonna replace you with one of my followers, and you know what I mean, they'll do the same thing. You can't do nothing. You know what I'm saying? We are $1 million worth of game. Without us, it's no show, and you know it. So go back, you know what I mean, to being a nerd, of being, just Gilly being a little bit of a bully. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But
Right.
this is Gilly though. You know what I mean? Shoot, I like, if you notice when Gilly was like, if you know anything about Gilly's rap career, right? Anybody who he has beef with, right? He did the same thing because he did the same thing to Cassidy. He did the same thing to other rappers in Philly. So this is
Mm-hmm.
Gilly. Like, once he feels like that you coming even indirectly saying anything about him, he's gonna come after and he's gonna make
He seems
real
very
joke about
erratic.
it. Yeah, he's gonna make a real joke about it. He's gonna try to clown you. He's like one of those guys, everybody went to school with somebody, who really just try to rip somebody down head to toe and be real comical with it. That is Gilly for real. And he still does it, but he's pretty entertaining when he does. But I'm just saying that's pretty much how that story went. Now, with the Pod Wars thing, what's funny is that when he was going at Joe Button, and he got the details, the contract. I mean, the one you talked about that he was offered that was low or whatever. And Gilly's like, yo, why don't you let me negotiate your deal? Because we over here Barstool, you know what I'm saying? We getting paid, you know what I'm saying? This, that, and the third, you know what I'm saying? And you ain't really getting nothing. So he's like, man, you doing this, but you know what I mean? Your money ain't right, your deal ain't right. You know what I mean? You just not really a good businessman. Like, he basically really was going after him, on that type time. You know what I mean? I know Joe was not happy about that, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? But they kind of,
Right.
they were doing their back and forth. But I was just like, man, when you go with Gilly, I'm like, you better be ready, because I'm like, he really be having the receipts for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's kind of wild, but I'm just like, that's just kind of how that is. But one thing I'll say, about Wallow, and I'm gonna let you step in here, Becca. You know what I'm saying? Wallow's kind of like the opposite of Gilly. You know what I mean? For real, like,
Completely opposite.
Wallow,
Complete
the
opposite.
one thing that he said, you know what I mean, that stuck with me, and he was just like, listen, man. He's like, and he told us, I mean, I was right there with my nephew, because, you know what I'm saying, we met up at Roots Picnic, you know what I'm saying? And it was like me, both my nephews, you know what I'm saying, my brother, Wallow, and Blueface. You know what I mean? For, of all people. You know what I'm
Of
saying?
all, I'm about to
But
say of all people.
yeah, but Wallow really was just dropping gems, like, and we're just listening in. Like, you know what I'm saying? Wallow was like, man, really just gotta believe in yourself, man, and really believe in yourself. Really, on me, go after it. I mean, great things are gonna happen. He's just a really positive guy. You know what I'm saying? Through all that he's been through, he's a really positive guy, man. So I mean,
I mean, Drake
I'm
Drake disagrees because Drake feels like that whole thing that happened with him in in Sweden is Wallow's fault, but okay.
I like, man. Usually they blame Gilly for everything. You know what I'm saying? I think Wallow's
Right.
all
And
right
that
too.
led to really, his whole explosion about there's no more podcasts. I'm not dealing with a rat. It's like, okay.
Yeah, crazy, crazy. But what do you think? $1 million worth of game with Gilly and Wallow. What do you think about that podcast?
I think their different personalities balance each other. I think Willie needs Gilly needs a Wallow to kind of
Yes,
calm his
I
behind
agree.
down because he seems very erratic, and I feel like a lot of that is from the excessive drug use. So he might still have some residuals in his bloodstream because he acts crazy. He acts very erratic, and I don't, not like silly, but erratic. Like either he's still on drugs or he used to be on drugs. That's just what it looks like to me. Just because
Only I've only ever seen him smoke weed. I haven't seen. I only seen weed and alcohol. Not that weed and alcohol cannot have an effect on you. You know what I'm saying? Because it certainly can. But that's all I seen. You know what I'm saying? That I'm just speaking from what I see.
and and it could be this that or it could be that mixed with his personality. But I feel
Yeah.
like you know when you're dealing with again male ego and pride, if it's popping up in every situation, it's really hard for men to swallow their pride when it comes to certain things. Like I think that issue with Drake saying that Wallow was the reason he got detained in Sweden makes really feel like, oh, my cousin, because they're actual cousins, they're
Yeah,
related,
real cousin. Yep.
right? So it's not just two people who have a pod together; they're family.
Hmm.
So you kind of mixing the business with the pleasure. Like, yeah, we're related, like how me and Stacks are related. So,
Hmm.
like, let's say me and Stacks have a really big argument, fallout in regards to the pod, then how do we separate that and then just be cousins?
Yeah,
Right?
you know,
So it's
it,
really hard to do that because I'm going to look at him however he presented himself in the argument about the pod as still my cousin. So I kind of feel like
right.
that's what Willie did with Gilly did with Wallow.
Mm.
Like, um, you you didn't make the separation, and that has nothing to do with why Drake got detained in Sweden and kind of like let the thing out. I think Drake played a big part into Gilly saying, F this, I don't want to do a pod with a rat. And just started, he went buck wild on his cousin. And his cousin was like, man, it ain't even, he was very calm about it. Like, it ain't even
Yeah,
like that. And he
yeah,
just went
yeah.
wild on
That's
it.
crazy.
I hope they can make up, but
Yeah,
maybe.
and I think they did. I think they're okay now, but it's I mean, because they cut on, like, I'm gonna say like this: family will cut on you the worst. Like, I mean, I'm serious. Like,
Or people
family,
close to you.
I'm like they, it's almost no holds barred. I'm like, I get around some of my cousins. I'm like, man, listen, anybody who knows me, if I'm out with my cousins or whatever, and I'm hanging out with them, I know people like, I wish I could be a fly on the wall, to hear the stories about you, because I'm like, they gonna go in and they gonna make it look more terrible than whatever y'all mean really happened, but they're gonna make it look bad. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But that's how my family is though. That's how we are. I'm just, and they thinking it's just me and the cousin, me and the guys. I'm like, me and my sister be having knockdown dragouts. This is my sister. Y'all mean my sister to me is like one of the sweetest people in the world. But when we going at it, oh, sheesh, the gloves is off. I'm like, man, you know what I'm saying? Either one of my sisters, you know what I'm saying?
That's
They both
crazy.
crazy. You know what I'm saying? But
Me and my sister never argued like that. I've
wow,
never had a
really?
big argument fallout with a family member like that.
Yeah,
Never.
I was just like, man, so it's crazy, you know what I'm saying, and showing somewhere on my family tree because we have the same last name, you know what I'm saying. He recently got upset with me, you know what I mean, and this is the real reason why, Becca. I told him Queens didn't get the money, and that's where that whole thing stemmed from, you know what I mean.
No,
Seriously, I
you
didn't know it was
didn't.
going to affect them that bad, but it did, you know what I'm saying. And it was just like, man, like, yo, Becca, can you talk to Sean because he won't talk to me. You know what I'm saying? He's like, well, what'd you say? I was just like, I just said Queens didn't get the money at all. And, it was real problematic. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm glad we was able to squash that or whatever. But yeah, it was a bad time, you know what I mean? For real, and showing somewhere on my family tree somewhere, having the same last name. So that was like a little podcast beef that we had, a personal one right there.
My
So I just wanted
Lord.
to throw that in
But yeah, it's really tough when you're dealing with so many personalities
there.
and
Hmm.
trying to all figure out what to do
Right.
in their own way.
Right.
And again, conflict resolution, and you have to
Yeah.
apply it in so many parts of your life, personally, professionally, dealing with friends, family, relationships, children. It's so many ways that you really have to be able to handle conflict resolution. And sometimes things just come to an end, right? Not everything lasts forever.
Yeah.
And not
Absolutely.
everything even has to fall out in a bad way. But
Yeah.
it might just be time for things to separate. Like Angela Yee has been with the Breakfast Club for 12 years. It might be time for her to want to do something different. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there was beef in the background, although I do kind of feel like there might have been, some tension. It necessarily wasn't a big fallout like Joe
Yeah.
Budden firing people who had already quit live on the pod because
Man.
it's good for ratings or it's salacious,
Right.
or a situation where Gilly just went on and called his own cousin a rat. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to be that dramatic or emotionally involved to just say, you know what, it might be time for us to just do something different. This is what you want to do, and this is what I want to do. And instead of us just fighting each other to figure out, why don't we just do our
Yeah.
own thing?
I'm like, man, I'm glad you brought that up with the Joe Button thing, when he went on, that firing thing or whatever. But it was kind of like, if you think about it, when Jay-Z had already left Rockefeller and Dame Dash had that public spat with one of the Def Jam executives, and he slapped him. You know what I'm saying? Like Jay-Z was like already gone. I remember my brother telling me that. He was like, yo, he's
Yeah.
like, listen, you like the camera didn't point to me, but I was literally like right there in the room. You know what I'm saying? When that happened. You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, well, he's like, I'm surprised that even happened because he's like Jay-Z, I mean, had left like a couple months prior. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And but he's like that played out on camera and it looked like, yo, you ain't taking Jay from me. That like I'm like, oh snap, that's crazy.
Right. But
But
they had already
it
left.
already happened though. You know what I'm saying? So I guess the Joe Button situation is kind of the same way. All right, so let's move on here. We're going to go to DeZeus and Mero. Is DeZeus or DeZeus? I'm not really sure.
Day Susan
Okay,
Marrow.
DeZeus. All
Yeah.
right. Now I heard a little bit about this backstory. Um, I heard that these two guys really didn't even have a problem with each other, but the problem showed up at Showtime. Now their guy, I'm forgetting what this guy's name is, right? But he really, was talking down to the Showtime executives, and
Uh-huh.
this is like Mero's guy, right? And Jesus really wasn't on board with, what I'm saying, how this guy was conducting himself, but this is the guy who put them in position to get the Showtime in the first place because he was a producer of the show, long time
Right.
friend, long time producer or whatever. But Mero, like, man, this is my guy from the block. Like, I mean, shit, if he ain't there, then I ain't there. You know what I'm saying? So that was a little crazy just hearing about it. But Becca, let me ask you about that. This Jesus and Mero, because it seemed like it seemed like they're still all right, but they just broke up. Like I'm like, man, this guy, their longtime friend. I'm just seems like, I'm saying he's ruining a little bit of business. That's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah, it was pretty much a situation where, they had mentioned that there was talks about separating like over a year ago.
Okay.
And so they had, they really was in the trenches before podcasting was podcasting. They
Yep.
really just they were one of the first to kind of pave the way to this kind of talk interview along with visuals kind of thing. Like they started with the Bodega Boys
Yep.
podcast, right?
Bodega Boys. Yep.
Where they was hosting their own show, and then that ultimately led them to do Showtime. Now we've never heard of podcasters being on TV like that on Showtime. So this was
Yeah.
a big deal when they made their deal with Showtime. And
Yeah.
it was interview based, and it really started as them being podcasters way
Hmm.
back in the day. So it wasn't even a situation where they tried to follow the wave of what's happening now with podcasting. They were in the very beginning of it. And at some
They kind of
point,
created the wave a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
they kind of did. They kind of
Yeah.
did. And
Hmm.
as far back as a year ago, over a year ago, they had at some point wanted to make, you know, creative moves on their own because once again, you've been doing the same thing with the same person for so long. At some point, you may want to do something different. And the way podcasting is changing now, they're able to kind of do things separately and still get the bag because they've
Yeah.
already created their kind of own existence in that space. So,
Hmm.
it was more so of I wouldn't say conflict of interest, but it was more so of this is where I want to go with this.
Hmm.
You disagree with it. So that way I don't have to fire you on air. Let's just do what we had originally thought to do over a year ago, which is just to separate, right?
Yeah.
So that way there's no animosity, there's no forcing of a partnership that's going to naturally come to an end at some point, right? It's
Right.
just not going to be the same if you continue to force it. So let's just leave now separately in a way where we can still support each other and it be no beef.
Right.
But it was a shock to a lot of people because if you're an avid fan and you're just all you're doing is listening and watching, you don't foresee it stopping at any point.
Mm.
Meanwhile, in the offices, they've been discussing this for over a year.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
seems abrupt, because you didn't see any issues with them. There wasn't any talks of them arguing backstage or fighting about this or fighting about
Hmm.
that or whatever. So when they said we're separating, it's like, oh snap, why? What
Yeah.
happened? Then
Yeah.
all the other stuff comes out about
Yeah.
talks behind the scenes and different deals that they were making on their own, and it was
Right.
inevitable it was going to happen at some point. And they've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like this, just as a fan, for to me, it's like damn, you know what I mean? Because like they had a real nice chemistry. You could tell, yeah, I mean, they was cool. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
mean, they had a real nice chemistry. I'm like, man, you know, they really knew how to joke well. They knew how to joke on other people well. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, that exchange between them and DJ Envy is still classic
Yes.
TV, radio, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Envy was hot, and they was
Yes, he
joking on
was.
him when they were there. Like
Yes.
he
Even
thought
during
like
the apology, so-called apology.
it's like, yeah, like I'm gonna apologize, but like, yo, you still like a bitch. Like, yo,
Yeah.
that's wild. You know?
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe, one day, in the future, maybe they can do something, I mean, maybe not, permanent, but just at least come together, you know what I'm saying, and do something, for the fans. That'd be nice to see
Yeah,
that.
they were ready. They were ready to move on as individuals. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's like, like I hear people talk about being twins, right?
Mhm.
And always being compared to your twin, and you just kind of want your own personality. You want your
Yeah.
own existence. You don't always want to be Jesus and Meryl. Sometimes I just want to be Jesus. Sometimes I want to just be Meryl. I don't want to always be compared or
Right.
connected to the situation. Like Khloe Kardashian. We always connect her to Tristan or Lamar because
Yeah.
that's all that we've known of her existence. And sometimes she might just want to be Khloe Kardashian, the
Yeah.
alleged daughter of OJ Simpson. No, I'm
Yeah.
joking.
Right. I'm like that, but it's like what's them twins? T and
Maori,
Tamara
yes.
Mowry. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm quite
Yeah.
sure they wanted to be different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and people have compared them all the time and even say that one is a blacker twin than the other because she has a black husband. So there's always some type of comparison. So when you're part of a group or a duo or a pair,
Mm-hmm.
you always are going to be connected to that person that they people have seen you with.
This is
So
true.
you got to fight sometimes for your own personality or your own existence. And I feel like with Jesus and Meryl, it was just time for them. We've only always saw them together,
Yeah, just true.
right? We've
True.
never seen them separately. So it may be time now for them to just separate and do their own things and remain friends. So that way, before the ego and pride comes in, let's just bow out gracefully
Right.
and carve our own lane and support each other.
Right. Absolutely. You know what I'm
Because
saying?
creativity is going to take over at some point, and once you have to fight for creativity, it's no longer fun, then it becomes work.
True. All right. So the last podcast we're gonna get to is the pivot. This is one of my favorites right here.
Hmm.
Now they started out as I Am Athlete with
Yes.
another former player, Brandon Marshall. And Brandon Marshall, I'm like he's obviously famous for playing football, but he also really brought this mental health aspect to about athletes that a lot of people really didn't know of, and the things, you know what I mean, that they got to have to go through, with being an athlete, concussions and things like that. He
Right.
really, brought a nice spin to it, and then he kind of brought, I know he had, oh man, you know what I mean, I'm forgetting my man, Ryan Clark. I know he had Ryan Clark in there with him, right from the beginning, and I think
Yeah.
Shannon Crowder was there too. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
Fred Taylor was there with him in the beginning, but I think he might have came a little bit later. But
Yeah, he did.
okay, you know what I'm saying? But they moved away from I Am Athlete. Don't know why the split was. I don't know the story behind that. Um, but then they moved to the pivot. You know what I mean? Where they're interviewing all types of people. Not just
Well,
athletes, but
from
everybody
what I'm
else.
hearing, the story is that Channing,
Mhm.
who is the one with the with the big mouth, who always ends up viral for some
Well,
crazy.
he's the one who stays talking about Russell Wilson. I still don't
Yes,
get
and
that one.
he's calling men beautiful and asks Kevin Hart about the nudist beat. He's
Yeah, I seen
reckless.
that one.
He's reckless. But he stated that Brandon wanted to do something bigger that Channing didn't believe in. Right? He
Okay,
didn't believe in whatever that other vision was. So here we
right.
go again with somebody or somebodies
Hmm.
wanting to do something different and the rest of the group not kind of seeing it or wanting to do it. So, you know, again, it wasn't. an argument. It wasn't a fight. They just decided to separate amicably.
Right.
And, he has been, known to say that he's rooting for them in whatever they do.
Hmm.
Um, but that there is a lane for the both of them. So they ended up
Right.
separating from I am athlete to
Okay.
now they pivoted, which I think is a perfect name, the Pivot
Right.
podcast.
Right.
Um, and ended up doing what they wanted to do. Meanwhile, I am athlete is still going on
Yep.
and they're doing what they want to do.
Yeah.
So the creative differences didn't cause a friendship to die and because of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good thing. But the pivot though, it's a fun podcast for me because I'm just like
Yeah.
some of the people they have on there are very controversial people. I mean, they had Antonio Brown. I'm like, you don't even have to watch football to know who Antonio Brown is. Now he hangs out with Kanye and he's a rapper and then he's dancing and he's doing all these things. He looks crazy, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
Obviously you know him, not from just playing football, but quitting in the middle of a game. You know what I'm saying? And taking his jersey off and his shoulder pads. I'm like, that will
Walking
forever
out.
be etched in
You talk about
stone.
AWOL.
Yeah, so I'm like, and then he took an Uber after that. You know what I'm saying? He's talking to an Uber driver, but this. I'm like, he wouldn't be him if he didn't leave the stadium in an Uber. You know what I'm saying? He just wouldn't be him. So I'm just like, man,
That's definitely like I don't have to take this. I'm going home.
right? You know what I'm
That's,
saying? So,
I don't have to take this. I'm going
but
home.
they have some real interesting people in there. The Kevin Hart interview, I mean, obviously
Hilarious.
gonna be near and dear to me, but you know what I'm saying? It was a good interview, but I'm like, man, they're pretty good because Ryan Clark is like very media. He's media trained, media savvy. He's been with
Yes.
ESPN for a lot of years, so he kind of knows. He's like the technical guy, and then Shannon Crowder is like the off the wall, just say anything. You know what I mean? It comes to mind type of guy. And Fred Taylor, is kind of calm, cool. Calm, cool demeanor. So it's a
I
nice
told
mix of
Sean one time he
personalities.
reminds me, him and Ryan Clark remind me of each other. He was like, never, no one's like me. I'm one of one. I'm like, okay. But if you
Oh,
if you if you watch the pivot, Ryan Clark, Mark, doesn't he give you Sean vibes?
yeah, you know what I'm
Media
saying?
media
Sean never
trained,
wants to be compared to anybody. He think people should be compared to him. You know what I'm saying?
of course. He's one of
Seriously,
one. Yes, of
I was like,
course.
listen, I remember Sean
Sean
told me
J.
he was just like, look, I gave Jordan the idea to even design them sneakers. They wouldn't even came out if it wasn't for me. You know
Shout
what I'm
out to
saying?
Sean J.
Shit.
slash Sean J.
Seriously. You know what I'm saying?
But
I ain't
yeah,
starting I ain't starting
I
with you, Sean. I'm not starting with you, man. You know what I'm saying?
that
Seriously.
was me. Blame me, Sean.
Yeah.
Um, I like the Pivot podcast, and I'm not even into sports like that at all. But I do like the way that they engage with the whoever they're interviewing, and it's
Hmm.
it's funny. It's
Yeah.
funny, and I think for me, what makes it more interesting is because I'm not into sports. So to watch these guys, I don't have any preconceived notion about them or their personality or anything like that. So when I'm watching an interview and I see Channing tell this man that he's beautiful, I'm just like, oh my God. Why?
Yeah.
Why did you do that?
Well, I mean,
When
this is the same guy that said, like, man, well, why would she be with him instead of Future? Future's the man. Like, what?
meanwhile, calling
Like,
somebody else a square every show, I think there's a little bit of hate. I think he wishes he was able to pull somebody like Sierra, but
yeah.
that's just my
I mean,
personal
here or
opinion.
there, you know what I'm saying? I got
Yeah, but that's another example of a podcast separating and it
you.
not being a major beef or anything in the news about how it was a big blow up behind the scene and
Right.
people was fighting and arguing. Sometimes it might just be time to leave. Like we've dealt with that here, even within the guys podcast of so much, there's so many things to talk about and there's so many personalities that sometimes it is a struggle to figure out what we're talking about. Who's going to be able to talk about it? Does anybody have knowledge of this? Is this your lane? Like
Mhm.
music, like sports is not my lane. I don't know anything about sports. So for me to be able to talk about sports, I would have to do some research. Music, maybe kind of, sort of, but my music is still old. Like my playlist is stuck in the 90s. These new rappers, I don't know nothing about them. So I would have to read up on it, right? Versus
Or
anything anything dealing with motherhood or being a woman or being newly married or just relationships in general. I can talk about that for hours. I'm living that and breathing that. That comes
Mhm.
easy for me.
Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing, where the music ties in though, you know what I'm saying? That's like King Combs' new song with Kodak Black. It's Lil Kim's old song. You know what I'm saying? Crush on You. You know?
Yes.
So it's crazy. Like I'm
Or
telling you,
Meg Thee
this
Stallion's new song is Jodeci's remix.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? So like sometimes you'll hear that. You know what I'm saying? Like, wait, I know that song, but then it's crazy because with like like us being like you know what I mean for real a little older now and then we you know what I mean we're all have kids around kids or whatever what I'm saying I'm just like man I remember my mom and my dad I was like yo what's that you listening to like yeah I'm listening to this this
Hmm.
Mob Deep or whatever oh well this is where that record come from man like man this
Bad
Mob
Boy.
Deep original mom you know what I mean
Puffy sampled every song from the 60s, 70s,
yeah
80s. Like
so
Puffy's whole existence was bringing back the old
yeah.
stuff.
So I just like, but I'm like, it's
They just
crazy
said give
because
her
it's
the
like
R&B topics.
you get to do, you get to throw that, what I mean, at the kids now when they say, oh, this that new joint. Not really. You know what I mean? This where it come from.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
you get to do,
Yeah.
yeah, you get to do that to your daughter. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Nah, this where that
absolutely.
come from. You know what I'm saying? I can put it on. you know.
Yeah,
So
but so it just makes you that's how you can kind of connect the dots and
mm,
make a conversation about it.
yeah,
But it's still like with so much going on in life, there's so many things to discuss and so many
absolutely.
ways to discuss it. It's just a matter of what. And
Mm-hmm.
potting may be fun, but it's not easy. It's
Nah.
not easy to just get on here weekly and talk about. Sometimes even we talk about hot topics or entertainment news. Yes, the news makes itself, right? The
Mm-hmm.
content is there, but 50 things happened within this week, right?
Yep.
What do we talk about to make the pod interesting that makes people want to watch us Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday? For those that
Mm-hmm.
are not physically watching on YouTube, for those that are listening, like right now, what's happening with podcasts is people are not watching as much as they're listening because
Nah.
we're back outside. So during the
Yeah.
pandemic, watching it was much more lucrative because people was able to sit at home. They could not go outside, so they was
Yep.
able to sit and watch potting now. Instead, people are back outside, so they may be listening when they're at the laundromat, while they're driving, while they're cooking. There's so many things, so people are listening more than they're watching. So now you
Mm-hmm.
have to engage where somebody wants to spend their time while they're cleaning the house listening to you run your mouth. You
Absolutely.
yapping at the captain about what? What is it that we're going to discuss that makes somebody want to give us an hour and 30 minutes to 2 hours of their time
Mm-hmm.
while they're doing their other stuff? It's
Absolutely.
not easy. We could talk about anything. We could talk about whatever pops up on the shade room. But is that going to make somebody want to give us their time on a weekly basis? That's a lot. For somebody who doesn't know us, Mark, to
Mm-hmm.
say, I'm going to tune in Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday at 8 a.m. and dedicate maybe an hour to 2 hours of my time to just listen to people we don't know, their opinions about stuff is a big thing.
Yeah.
That's not a light thing at
But I'll
all.
tell you though, I mean going on that drive though, you know what I'm saying? And then just popping something up. That's all
Yeah.
right though, seriously. I'm just like, oh man, like, all right, I'm listening to it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just
Yeah.
riding.
Because
So
music can be entertaining, right? Music puts you in a mood. But
yeah.
hearing two people talk might not do that for you when you have to drive 5 hours. People might not say, let me put on a podcast. They may say, let me put on some good music so this 5 hour drive don't seem boring.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's a lot. It's a lot,
But I would
it's a
say
lot.
like, yeah, I feel you. I mean, to me, it's just like you kind of want to get to what part you want to get to. Like, all right, so if somebody like they play this tomorrow, right? Wait a minute, I want to skip straight to the podcast stuff, right? I'm
Yeah.
with you. You know what I mean? I'm with you, dude. Like for real, we would, so that's all you got to do. Just like yo, just hit that red line or whatever. Like, all right, let me move this about 45 minutes. All
Yeah.
right, cool. Do you, man? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
And
I
I
mean,
can understand being a podcast watcher and listener, how a lot of these groups end up breaking up or pivoting or
Mm, absolutely.
changing, members or whatever the case may be, because sometimes you got to switch it up. It could get
Absolutely.
monotonous. It could get to the point where it's like, all right, if nothing entertaining happened that week in the news, what are we going to talk about? We have to end up creating our own content. Then
Absolutely.
that comes into, well, what can we create that's engaging? What can we create that's interesting, that's going to make people watch
Yep.
us? Because if
Absolutely.
if it's not entertaining and people don't care to watch us or listen to us, at that point it's just a hobby and something for us to do to kill time throughout the day. But there's
Gotcha.
no end goal.
Yep. But that's what it is. That's the podcast game wrapped up in a nutshell. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, man, thanks to everybody, tuned in with us, listening and everything like that. Let's shout out some sponsors real quick. Shout out to Strim. You know what I'm saying? That will be channel 6. That is the guys podcast network. So check that out. Shout out to Bobby Blackjack TV. Shout out, you know what I mean, for the Apple. Shout out to, you know what I mean, for 1 Mile High Radio. You know what I'm saying? Always tuning in with us. Shout out to everybody, who just kind of, rocks with us or whatever. The crew, you know what I mean, for myself, Becca, Merv, Stacks, Tina B, Street Team General Tayson, Nick J, you know what I'm saying? So shout, you know what I mean, for real, y'all. Tomorrow's gonna be crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Woo!
For real, because they talking
Tomorrow's gonna
about
be
tomorrow's gonna
stacked.
be crazy. They talking about the season finale, P Valley. P Valley has been on fire, you know what I mean, for the
Yeah.
last couple days. It's all anyone wants to talk about. Um
And
it's it,
power.
I'm gonna say like this. It's bad that, yeah, I mean, for a Power Book 3 came on the same day as P Valley, because I know some people who hasn't even watched Power 3 yet. They haven't watched first episode. They haven't watched
Yeah,
it.
I just
They
watched it today. I
yeah,
was
they they
I
they
was in
want to
P
get they want
Valley
to give it their
mode,
own
so
lane.
they had to
They
wait.
they just like, I gotta get they like, Mark, I gotta get the P Valley out of me. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
And then I
yes.
gotta get the Raising Canaan. You know what I'm saying? So it's really gonna be, it's almost like next week people are going to be talking about episode 1 and 2 from Raising Canaan. Now tomorrow, I think, y'all, mean, for Merv is going to be able to touch on both shows, but I'm like,
Yes.
it's going to be some people who are going to tune in and like, Merv, I ain't even watched this show yet. You know what I'm
Make
saying?
sure y'all
Like, I
watch
haven't.
Power and P Valley tomorrow
Yeah,
because Merv and Tayson will be reviewing both
yeah,
shows.
definitely.
So make sure
But
you tune
all I'm
in
gonna say
tomorrow.
is, for the Power Book 3 people, Rock is a whole queen pin. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, this type of shit was done in real life. I'm
Don't
like, man,
spoil it, Mark.
great. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say like this, just great storytelling. Great storytelling on that part.
Yeah, it was
So
good.
you gotta tune in for that. Wednesday, you know what I'm saying? The gang's all back together. Uh I don't even know what we're talking about, you know what I'm saying? But I got a feeling, you know what I mean, for it's gonna be somebody very familiar, you know what I mean, but I'm not gonna save that for later. But somebody
Merv is gonna
familiar,
be
you
in
know
the
what I mean?
building, so
Yeah.
just know it's
Yeah.
gonna be
Well,
spicy.
you know what I mean, when Merv misses a week, you know what I mean, he got to go back in time and grab, you know what I mean, something and bring it back forward,
Yeah, he got
so
to
that
come back
that's how
and
Merv got to do, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Merv
and
got to
make
go
sure we
back in
missed
time.
him.
I'm trying to tell you, sometimes I think Merv drives that car from Back to the Future. I lie to you not. You know what I mean? Seriously, because
You
I got to
right,
go back. Like, Mark, look, I got to go back. Becca, I got to go back. I got to grab that, and then we got to come back here. So I'm
right,
just like, all
right.
right. Yeah, so that's Merv in a nutshell. Anyway, you know what I'm saying? Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. And we
Yes,
out. Catch
we
y'all
out, y'all.
soon.
Bye.
Later.
Good night.